And what's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam? How we doing? The Madman back with you for all of your UCLA football needs. Wanted to jump on here on this Sunday evening as the Chesney train rolls on. And Thriller and I talked about it earlier this weekend. We were expecting some big dominoes to fall despite all of the incredible momentum that we had here with UCLA over the past few weeks. We thought the big fish were still coming, and boy, oh boy, has the eagle landed. The absolute prize of this transfer portal class, by far the number one prospect that UCLA has gotten to this point, which is really saying something because the transfer portal class now is up to 34 commits for UCLA. The prize, the gem, the treasure, potentially the best player on the team this side of Nico Iamaleava has landed to the UCLA Bruins. Of course, Mr. Sahir West, defensive end, edge rusher extraordinaire, is who we were looking for, who we were really sort of striving for. Sun Belt Freshman of the Year, someone that can run roughshod on the Big Ten with that athleticism, and someone that is a true game changer on the defensive side of the ball. Had opportunities with Ohio State, had opportunities with Texas A&M, ultimately chooses the gutty, mighty Bruins of UCLA and the Bob Chesney staff to continue his collegiate career. Benjamin Royer of the OC Register said it best. UCLA last year had 10 sacks total in the 2025 season. Sahir West has 7 sacks in the 2025 season. UCLA as a team in 2025 had 40 tackles for loss. Sahir West by himself had 14 tackles for loss. Far and away the best defensive player on this James Madison team that, of course, made it to the college football playoff. So an absolutely massive get, huge game changer. We needed more athleticism on the edge. We needed some edge anchors. And boy, oh boy, do we have that now with Sahir West. But the day was not done, friends. Sahir West, of course, was the big get, came late Saturday night. But in addition to that, got 2 terrific interior defensive lineman prospects. The first, Maxwell Roy, interior defensive lineman, 6'3", 301 pounds, former 4-star recruit to the Ohio State Buckeyes, arguably the preeminent program in all of college football. And Maxwell Roy was also an All-American wrestler. So you understand he's got that technique. He's got that low center of gravity. He's got the hand mechanics to be a really terrific interior defensive lineman. He now jumps in to this Hitchler defense in the perfect way. And not to be outdone, if Sahir West wasn't big enough, if Maxwell Roy wasn't big enough, we also get Tyson Ford from Cal, 6'5", 300 pounds, interior defensive lineman, former 4-star who originally committed to Notre Dame, went from Notre Dame to Cal, now finds himself at UCLA really looking for that right situation. So I got to be honest with you here, folks. Thriller and I talked about it so much. 15 was that key number that we said we needed between offensive and defensive linemen. This Big Ten conference, like we've repeatedly said, has been built from the inside out. And now if you start looking at this defensive line room for UCLA, it is starting to take shape in a very, very significant way. So if you look at things, now you got Sahir West on one edge. You're probably going to leverage Ryan McCullough and that terrific athleticism on the other edge. Those are your 2 edges. Now you're looking interior defensive line. You've got Maxwell Roy. You've got, obviously, Tyson Ford. You've got Amir Washington, who we talked about, the Texas Tech transfer. And then you got DeGoey as the transfer from Rutgers. That's probably going to be your 4-man interior defensive line rotation. You got West and McCullough on the edge. You've got Aiden Gabira also on the edge, which was Sahir West's counterpart at JMU as being that 3rd man. So now you're seeing this sort of 7-man rotation take place on the defensive line. I would expect UCLA to potentially add one more edge as a depth piece and then really attack 1 or 2 more linebackers. I think that's the next step now to really fortify this front 7. I think we're feeling really good about the secondary. like we talked about earlier. A lot of depth, a lot of quality. And now when you look at that defensive line, again, Sahir West, just a ton of athleticism, explosiveness. You got McCullough, ton of athleticism and explosiveness. Both guys complementing each other. And then you got that girth in the middle there, between Ford, between Roy, between Washington, between DeGoey. You really got some nice meat there in the middle of that line to be able to stop the run, to be able to really fill those A and B gaps, particularly when you're talking about the zone reads. So this thing is really starting to take shape in a very exciting way. I think at this stage now, from a defensive perspective, you really want to prioritize one or two more backers, get one or two more backers in the room there to really fortify that front seven. And if you can, maybe add a fourth edge, and really kind of have a four-man edge rotation to really give West and McCullough a blow and make sure that they're fresh going into the second half of games, the second half of the season, and really going into crunch time. This is getting very, very exciting on the defensive line. And then if you flip it, obviously West got all the accolades and all the buzz here the last 24 hours, followed by Roy, followed by Ford. But then Sean Na'a, we got a great transfer there. He's raw, 3-star. But again, 300-pounder, comes from Arizona State to really fortify more depth on the offensive line as well. And so now if we kind of take a step back and say, what does the offensive line look like? You're really loving Hall Schmidt there at left tackle. Your guards, I think, are now slotting in very, very nicely. You've got Eugene Brooks as one guard. You got Riley Robel as the other guard. You got Sam Yoon at center. And then you got some really nice depth pieces. You got Sweezy from James Madison. You got J.D. Rayner. You got Na'a. So you got some really nice depth pieces. You got really nice depth there. I think what UCLA is going to have to do, though, is get one more starting quality tackle on that right side. That right tackle, I think, is what UCLA is looking for. And then probably someone in addition to Sam Yoon to ensure that you got some really nice depth at center. So I think 34 incoming transfers. So exciting right now what's happening. But these rooms are now starting to take shape. And if I was Bob Chesney and staff, I think where I'm now identifying and saying I'm kind of down to my last 5 or 6 pieces here, make this class about 40. Remember, we had said it was going to be about 30 or 40 players. We're sitting at 34 right now. I would expect us to get to 40, maybe even north of 40. But we're now starting to get into single digits in terms of what's remaining. I think in terms of single digits here, you want another center. You really want to hit that right tackle. You want one or two linebackers, and you want one more edge from a depth perspective. That's about 5-6 pieces right there. And then you see, in terms of best available talent, if you want to add one or two pieces, that's going to put you right at 40, 42 players in terms of incoming, which is exactly what we're expecting. So this is super exciting now, folks. This thing is starting to take shape. And I have to be honest with you, if Chesney is able to sort of close on one more right tackle, get a little bit more O-line depth, based on what we're seeing on this defensive line, what we're seeing on this offensive line, and how we're seeing this sort of non-conference schedule play out with Nico back, there is absolutely zero reason not to believe that this is an 8-win team in 2025, maybe even a 9-win team. We're looking at the prospect here of an 8-4 football team, maybe even a 9-3 football team, and that is going to pave the way for tremendous success in 2027, where UCLA can absolutely make a run into the college football playoff in 2027. So this is super exciting. I know Twitter is going crazy. I know a lot of comments out there where, this is the first time, again, we talked about a better part of a decade, where there's just a vibrancy, there's an enthusiasm, there's an energy, there's a competence in terms of the coaching staff and the front office that we just have not seen. DeShaun never could really kind of get off the ground. It was short. He was unfortunately in over his head a little bit. A tremendous Bruin. We love him so much, but just wasn't the right fit. Chip just, to Chip's credit, I think realized that his style, his personality was just not going to mesh with modern college football, with NIL and the transfer portal and, all the deficiencies that came from a recruiting standpoint. Had a great eye for talent, still pound for pound, one of the great offensive minds in all of football. But just, it wasn't a holistic package at that particular stage from a head coach perspective. So he had 2 years almost with DeShaun, 6 years with Chip. That second half, the last 3 years of the Mora era, we won't sort of get into it, but there's a lot of narratives out there about distractions with Mora in his personal life. I think kind of, things were a bit of a struggle there. So you look at those final 3 years with Mora, the 6 years with Chip, 2 years with DeShaun. That's 11 years. I mean, we haven't really had an energy to this program really for 11, 12 years since that first 3 years of the Mora era, of course, off of the back of incredible success from a recruiting standpoint that Rick Neuheisel had to set up Mora for success in those first few years. And so you can feel it. You can feel it from the fan base of saying, man, this is sort of what things look like once you get a credible coaching staff in the building and guys know what they're doing. Things can happen very, very quickly. UCLA just has so many inherent advantages. There is no reason, folks, why we cannot field a perennial contender every year in the Big Ten. We have to believe it. I think we're starting to see it now in terms of some of these initial results, and the results are going to translate on the field. So wanted to jump on here. Super exciting. We got our guy. We've been waiting for it. We've been aching for it. We said, look, we're off to such a tremendous start in terms of the transfer portal. But, man, the ultimate prize, I mean, to really put a bow on this transfer portal season and make it an absolute A++, if we got Sahir West, we got our guy. We got our guy again. Chesney was our original guy. Sahir West is our sequel guy. We're just getting all of our guys. And yet again, even today, between West, between Roy, between Ford, we are talking about top-end talent here. These are guys that have won all-conference honors or have been former four-star guys recruited by the likes of Ohio State, guys recruited by the likes of Notre Dame. I mean, we are getting in with some of the preeminent athletes here in terms of this sport, and it's absolutely so exciting. So, folks, great to have you on as always. Will and I are going to keep this thing rolling. We told you this is going to be a bonkers next 2 weeks. We're about 10 days in now. The portal closes on Friday. I expect more movement over these next 5 days, and then hopefully things settle a bit, and then we have our entire roster holistically, and we can start analyzing position group by position group. But before we get out of here, like I always say, 2 requests of you. Please hit that like and subscribe button as we continue to grow this channel and grow this community. 2026 is a huge year for LAFB, as it is for our beloved Bruins, so it would mean the absolute world to us if you hit that like and subscribe button. Tell your friends, tell your family about this show. It's one of the very few shows dedicated to UCLA football. So all your Bruin faithful friends, family, tell them to subscribe and be part of our community. It would mean so much to us. And before we get out of here, have to sort of recognize our sleeper app. Download that #1 sports app on the market today. Real-time stats, real-time engagement, fully immersive one-stop shop. Tell them the guys from the LAFB network sent you. Use that promo code UCLA LAFB and get $100 off your match bonus. 100 becomes 200, and you get really, really dangerous on this app. So, guys, wanted to jump on. The momentum rolls on. Join this bandwagon, folks. It's leaving the station, okay? Because in the next few weeks, next few months, there's going to be no room on the bandwagon for anyone when UCLA starts running roughshod, not just on the Big Ten, but also on the entirety of the college football landscape nationally. Jump on. The Bruins are back, baby. The Bruins are back. This is starting to feel like the 80s and 90s again. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. We're going to have to see it on the field. But believe you me, this has all the makings of what the 80s and 90s were, and weren't those some glorious times for UCLA football? And we are going to get back to those glorious times very, 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 very soon. And so, like I always say, be loud, be proud, be passionate, Bruins. And until next time, 4's up forever, baby.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.